Thanks for coming, and I should probably say thanks for staying around so long. So, I know it's been a long day, and I appreciate your time. And I first want to start by saying I really appreciate the effort that Carl Benson and Sun Belt Conference has put into Media Day here. I think it's been a first-class event. Last night was first class, and today is first class. I don't think anybody does it any better, and I think that's just another example why the Sun Belt Conference is starting to gain more national exposure, especially with us finishing third last year in the Group of Five conferences with our work on the field as a collaborative conference. This conference is deep, it's tough week in and week out. As you met today, there's a lot of great coaches and student athletes from every school in this conference. Let me first start by saying, our goals as a program for our university and for our community is compete for championships. And we want to compete for championships every year, and this year is no different. We've got a tough schedule, to say the least, but I told our players just a few weeks ago, the greatest views come from the hardest climbs. And so we're going to attack this season one game at a time. We've got a very good Southeast Louisiana team coming to Cajun Field week 1, and then we get into a very tough non-conference schedule. And then a little bit different this year, we open up with the University of Louisiana Monroe at home for the first conference game. Big change in what it has been in the past, where we normally play them the last game of the season. But not only a very tough and challenging non-conference schedule, a very challenging conference schedule, to say the least, especially with the number of road games. We're playing both co-champions on the road this year with Arkansas State and App State on the road. So that will be a challenge. We're also excited, though, that we've been picked by ESPN to be televised on 2 Thursday night games. I think that just shows what type of respect that ESPN has for our program, being chosen to play on prime time two times throughout the season. And so that will be great exposure for our athletic department, for our football program, for our university, and from our community in Acadiana. So we're excited about that. Offensively, if we had to talk about our football team, the strengths and weaknesses of our football team, our strengths of our football team will be our front on both sides of the football. Our offensive line returns 4 starters. Those guys have a lot of games, 13 games under their belt. And then on the defensive line, just about every starter returns, including freshman All-American Joe Dillon. And so he will be, to me, a guy that can really be a game changer as we are moving forward throughout the season. We have a lot of depth at the defensive line, and some guys have played in a lot of games. And then we've increased our depth even on the offensive line. So those 2 units will be 2 units that we will call upon as the season goes along. Another question we get is quarterback position, but we've named Jordan Davis the starting quarterback after the spring game. Jordan's a guy that's been in our program. He's going into his 4th season. He knows what's expected from us. He knows what we're about, and he has had a great relationship with new offensive coordinator Will Hall. And I think that he has some big days ahead of him. And I think having 4 starters in front of him back on the offensive line has got to give him a little feel of security as he's back there spraying the ball around. To me, one of the best wide receiving corps in the conference. And so that's another exciting part. At running back, we've got to replace Elijah McGuire. I don't know if you replace him right away. The second leading rusher in school history after he'd been drafted this past season by the New York Jets. That we have some talented young talented young running backs. It'll be interesting during fall camp for 5 weeks to see who steps up and takes that leadership or that starting role. But we have a lot of really good candidates, and I think they all can get the job done without any worries there. Then you go to the defensive side of the ball. We've talked about the defensive line. Not only do we have Joe Dillon, we've got DeBoris Lee back. He has been one of the mainstays on this team and in this conference for the last 3 seasons. And then Jarvis Jeffries is back along with Trev Miller. So we've got some guys with some experience that played at a high level last year. Our secondary, we've got a lot of experience back, especially with Tracy Walker, who is here representing us today, and Travis Crawford, both at the safety position. And then we've got a lot of corners that have a lot of experience playing at the corner position. The big question mark on defense is linebacker play. We lost Otha Peters and Tremaine Lightfoot. That's 200 tackles combined, so that's a lot of production that was lost. And so I'm anxious to see who's going to fill those roles. Veteran T.J. Posey comes into camp as one of the starters. Now we're looking to see who's going to also fill that role between some young guys and some transfers. to fill in at the linebacker position. Special teams, Stevie Ortiz, first team preseason All Sun Belt Conference from Lafayette High, returns, and I'm really excited about what he can do for our football team. He had an outstanding year last year, especially the last 2/3 of the year, not only in his field goals, but in his kickoffs. And he is a guy that he will make a difference for us this year in some games, to say the least. With our team, with our schedule, we're excited to get started this year. As you know, camp is much earlier. In the past, we've started about August the 4th, August the 5th. We report this year July 30th. So it is going to be a 5-week camp. So that will be a challenge within itself, because as coaches, we always want to hit the ground running, full speed. We've got to realize that we don't play week 1. We play 5 weeks from when we start. So we've got to make sure our team is healthy and our team is peaking at the right time when we open up at home at Cajun Field. We've got new turf coming to Cajun Field for the first game. Excited about that. Excited about the commitment our university and our athletic department has done there, and appreciate Dr. Maggard for making that happen, along with the help of some other people. And so we're excited for that. As we're moving forward, there'll be a great addition to Cajun Field, not only for the venue itself, but for the health and for our student athletes that play on that turf every single day. So we're excited to kick this season off. This is always, when you come to media day, you know you're fixing to kick it off, and it's always an exciting time. And we're ready to get started and ready to attack this schedule. Any questions?
Coach, with that 5-week camp, does that change anything in the way you run your preseason camp?
Yeah, you know, believe it or not, during camp, we're going to give our guys a complete day off, and even the coaches to some extent. We've got 5 weeks in the past. You might have had 4, you may have had 3.5 weeks. Now with a 5-week camp, they've got to have a little bit of downtime. Don't want to burn them out mentally before you get to that first game. And so they will get 1 day a week off where they are completely free. And in the past in camp, you never did that. The camp is much longer now, so they've got to keep that focus. They've got to keep that mental edge, and we don't want to burn them out before the season even begins.
Coach, how much weight do you put in the preseason poll? A lot of them are just reflections of how a team did last year, and maybe not an indication of this year. Do y'all look at that? Do your players look at that? How do you approach the polls?
You know, I don't put a lot into preseason polls. You know, I put a lot into the postseason polls. But nevertheless, you still want to be ranked high anytime if you're a competitor. But for us, you know, we were preseason number 4 in one poll. I think preseason maybe 6 or 7 in another poll. But when you're preseason number 5, which was the coaches poll, but you look and we defeated 2 of those teams ahead of us the previous year, and you look at that and you say, you know what, I don't know if we're going to put a lot into that. But nevertheless, it'll be a great little motivational nugget that I can use for our football team, to say the least, because we want to be ranked first at the beginning and, most importantly, you know, at the end of the season.
Coach, over the last year, I know it's been difficult at times. Some of the things that you've had to deal with,
right?
What have you learned during that whole process when some things are going on that, frankly, you didn't want to happen?
Well, life is much different than the classroom. You know, life gives you the test first and the lesson second. And so it has been a great learning experience. And these young men, I'll tell you, have learned an awful lot. And I think they're going to be better men for it. I know our team is much better for it because we've come together. We've pulled together, become a closer knit team. And those players have worked awfully hard, not only to show the community that, you know what, they're really good guys and they really made a mistake and they've tried to improve, but they wanted to show their teammates the same thing. And that was important for them to gain the teammates' respect back. And so they've worked awfully hard, whether it's through lots of community service and other ways, but they've worked hard, and but it has pulled our team together, and we've learned a lot from it. I've learned a lot from it, and we've got a lot of measures in place moving forward. We're doing much more and putting many more resources into things to help develop our student athletes throughout the year in different type of things, character development, social development, and things that we can do to help them become more successful off the field, just like the thousands and thousands of resources that we use to help them become successful, you know, on the field.
You touched on the schedule. As you look back, is it your toughest here yet? And also, with two SEC opponents both on the road, how does that affect the margin of error?
Yeah, there's not much margin of error. You know, in 2011, we played 5 home games, 7 on the road. But this year, when you look at 2 SEC teams on the road, co-champions on the road, a 10-win Tulsa team on the road, a 9-win 4,000-mile trip to Idaho on the road, and then, you know, South Alabama, who's always in the top third in this conference on the road. That's a pretty good challenge. But somebody asked me one time, how do you eat an elephant? And he said, one bite at a time. And so, you know, we're going to take it one game at a time. And but our guys are excited for the challenge. They're going to go in some great venues and this year, and that's going to be an exciting part. And so, but also I think it's going to help pull our team together. I like playing on the road, with the exception of the fact it's hostile environments. But when you go on the road, you get a chance to pull your team together. You're all together in the hotel room. You got them all under your watch. It seems to be less distractions when you play on the road. So hopefully we can use that as a rallying point for our team to become a great road team. And like I said, take it one game at a time, because this team is they're excited, they're confident, and they've worked awfully hard, and they've got high expectations.
Hey, Coach, can you kind of talk about the incoming freshman class? You got guys like Elijah Mitchell, Braylon Trahan, some local guys coming in. What are your expectations for them?
You know, Elijah Mitchell, he has got as much opportunity to play at the running back position as the other guys. He's had a great summer. The guy can run. He's explosive. We really nailed a gem by getting Elijah Mitchell in a Raging Cajun uniform. You know, we got Zion Hill, another local player that, to me, has got a chance to play this year. He's in the plans to play this year. And then Trahan, obviously, from Acadiana High, I think he's got a chance to play this year. I've got him already penciled in on special teams. So I'm anxious to see him. He's put on 15 pounds just this summer. And so we've got a lot of local guys, and that's not even to mention Steve Urt, who's first team Sunbelt Conference. So a lot of players from Acadiana on our team, and we want a lot of players from our community, from Acadiana on our team, because we want to be their team. And we're excited about those players fighting, going out there in Cajun Field with their fans every Saturday.
Coach, piggybacking off that same question, but a local kid from Baton Rouge that I spoke to you about, Levi Lewis is a quarterback. You have a starting quarterback in place. You have 6 scholarship quarterbacks. 5-week fall camp, and how much can that help a young player like Levi, and what have you seen from Levi in his development so far?
You know, Levi is a special kid. He's got what I call that it factor. He is a student of the game. He has had a great summer. That guy is a coach really on the field. He loves the game, loves to watch tape. He's got a great relationship with Coach Hall. I think he's got a bright future. And he'll have a chance to compete for what we call a chance to get on the plane, chance to travel. He'll be in that competition for that, because we'll travel at least 3 quarterbacks, and he'll have a chance to be one of those 3. We'll see how that shakes out during fall camp.
Jam Williams, center fielder, now turned safety. Can you elaborate on how he's doing?
Jam is doing phenomenal. Jam's a young man that we recruited out of high school. Ended up taking the baseball route, playing for Coach Robichaux with the baseball team, and did some great things. But, you know, he's coming from a great program, from Coach Robichaux's program, and you know, he's a fine young man. He's a hard worker. He was already one of our lifters of the week twice this year, so he's got great work ethic, but the guy's got a great skill set. And so he's going to start off at the safety position. I think he's going to give us some immediate depth. He's going to help us on special teams, and as he gets more experience and maybe knocks the rust off of his football playing ability, I think he'll get even more playing time. So I'm anxious to see what he can do, because he is one good-looking young man. He's worked awfully hard.
Hey, Coach Jay Russell here. Not the start you guys wanted last year, 45-10 at Boise State. Now you have Mike Lucas in place, the defensive coordinator. What are you looking to see the changes from him starting off the season?
Well, you know, we want to come out of the blocks much better than we did last year. And then after we made that quick change last year, it ended up being a great change for the fact that we got better every week. But now, Coach Lucas last year only had 5 days to put in this defense last year when we named him the coordinator. Now he's had a full off-season, spring football practice, summer, and now 5 weeks of practice during camp to put all the little wrinkles in, all the rest of the bells and whistles, and continue developing his players the way he wants to develop them. And I think he's going to obviously have our team ready, along with co-coordinator Charlie Harbison. And so they work extremely well together. And I tell you what, I'm really proud of Marcus Lovings and Levon Harbin, our defensive staff. they're doing a super job. And speaking of staff, I think I've got the best staff in the country, and I couldn't be here tonight without speaking about them. Just talked about the defense staff, but on offense staff, you got Will Hall. He played for me at the University of North Alabama. He was my quarterback. And so very familiar with Will. George Munoz moves to the wide receiver position. He's been on our staff all 7 years and has developed some of our best wideouts. Mitch Rodriguez returns for his 7th season at offensive line. And then Reed Stringer is still our assistant head coach, tight end coach. And Mike Desimo, one of the greatest all-time Raging Cajuns in history, lines up, and he's moving from receivers to running backs. And then our director of football operations, the great Troy Wingroder. So we've got a great staff. Love those guys. They're all great men, good mentors to our players, and they're just as excited about the season as we are.
And then also, too, Tracy Walker, this cat, he came out, he's on the preseason second team for defense. You got somebody like that, young kids on the team, rookies, specifically Braylon Trahan. How special is that having these guys that understand the game to try to teach the young cats the game?
Well, I think Braylon's coming in at a good time. Some of the young DBs, Shadarian Archie, Braylon Trahan, they're coming in, Jalen Johnson, they're coming in at a good time because they're going to get to learn from Tracy Walker, Travis Crawford, some guys that have been in a lot of battles, some guys that have won a lot of games, that know how to work, know how to prepare. So any young player that comes in and they get to work behind a great player like last season when you got Raymond Calais, he got to come in and work behind Elijah McGuire and see the work ethic, to see his determination. I think that's always a huge bonus.
Can you talk about what you see that you like from Jordan Davis?
Well, first of all, Jordan Davis is our kind of guy. He's been in our program. He knows what's expected in our program. He works awfully hard. But when we went out and tried to find the quarterback that we wanted, he's what we want. A guy that can spin the ball, but a guy that can get you out of trouble, and a guy that can run the football effectively to help you win. He is what I call a true dual threat quarterback, but he's really good at both. And so with the talent he has around him, I think that's only going to help him take pressure off of him because he has some talent to spread it around too. He's got some veteran offensive linemen up front. Hopefully they give him a little bit of confidence back there in the pocket.
Coach, I was interviewing Tracy Walker before the game. He said, before this all started, he was telling me that one of his favorite songs is called Jungle. So I said, how about we name, Cajun Field the Jungle? You're coming into the jungle to play. How you like how that sounds?
Yeah, I like that. Sounds good, but the swamp, you'll never change it from the swamp. We want it to be the swamp, and we take pride in it being the swamp, being hot down in that swamp. And now with that new turf, that'll make it even better.
And then lastly, Coach, how much you throwing up these days, man? Them guns are getting bigger and bigger.
You know what? This summer traveling, summer diet, and staying in hotels and eating food like they have here at the Sun Belt Conference. Not saying it's not good food, it's maybe not the best for you. It's cut into my training a little bit, so got to get back after it here when we start camp. Got to get into a routine. I'm like players. If you don't have a good routine, it's hard to stay consistent. And so hopefully we can get a good routine starting out in camp here pretty soon.
This is just in regard to major conference opponents. And yeah, I know there's a philosophy on one hand that maybe scaling back to one per year would be beneficial. Of course, you guys have made a bunch of bowl games in the last half decade, scheduling just the way you are. So where are you standing on that now?
Well, yeah, I would like to scale back if possible. We got to do what's best for our university, though, and what's best for our athletic program and football program, to say the least. And in some ways, the exposure is really good. The competition, if you like to compete, if you're a competitor and you want to play the best, and we want to play good people, we want to play the best, we want to measure ourselves against the best. And we're doing that this year, not only with our two SEC opponents, but with an outstanding Tulsa team. And then what to me, one of the top FCS teams in the country with Southeast Louisiana. So we want to play good people. We want to play the best. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And so I think it also helps in recruiting. When players know they're going to get to play in great venues against great competition.